Healing is trending, but not the kind that actually heals, though, I think. I mean, scroll through social media and you'll see what I mean. There's before and after transformations. There's sleek aesthetics and new haircuts and gym selfies and powerful quotes like elevating and leveling up. I mean, it looks good, it feels good, it's motivating until it's not. Because beneath that curated healing is often a deeper truth, one I don't think that is as shareable. Real healing is actually ugly. It's boring, it's invisible, and most of all, it's slow. This episode isn't here to mock the glow up trend. It's here to ask a deeper question. What happens when we confuse being impressive with being whole? Because a six pack doesn't mean that you're healed in your relationships, especially to rejection. A new wardrobe doesn't mean you've rebuilt your sense of self worth, does it? And I mean, becoming more attractive doesn't mean that you feel more safe in the midst of intimacy. This isn't just a surface level issue, I think. It's a spiritual one. Because when we start to believe that the only way that we become lovable is to upgrade ourselves into someone who's more desirable, we're reinforcing the same wound that started it all off. I wasn't enough before, we'll say, or I wasn't good enough to be chosen, or I have to earn my way back into worthiness. And so the healing journey becomes another performance. It becomes another mask, another strategy to become palatable. But what if true healing isn't about becoming more beautiful, but instead it's about becoming more honest? Let's go deeper on this, shall we? Think about the last time that you felt rejected. Maybe it was a partner or a friend or a family member. But what was your first instinct? For many of us, it's to fix ourselves, to find what made us unlovable, to become more desirable or more impressive or more powerful. We think, if I can just level up, then they'll regret losing me. If I transform enough, I'll feel this way again. Or if I become harder or sexier or richer, then I'll be safe. And listen, that's not a stupid reaction. It makes sense. Because in a world that rewards performance and punishes vulnerability, it's only logical to equate transformation with protection. But here's the problem. It doesn't work. Because if your healing is based on someone else's gaze, it will always feel hollow. And if your transformation is about avoiding pain and not embracing truth, it will always require maintenance. But true healing is different. True healing, it doesn't require you to look better, but it requires you to look inward. And that's terrifying because what you find inside may not feel worthy. It may feel wounded and needy and ashamed. But that's where the rebuild begins. Not with upgrading your appearance, not with optimizing your habits, but with reclaiming your right to exist as you are. And that doesn't mean that you don't change. It means that the change is coming from within, not for approval externally, nor alignment, but alignment with yourself. Let's say that again. The most powerful healing doesn't come from trying to be chosen externally. It comes from choosing yourself internally, even when you feel unworthy. Now that's not sexy. That won't get you applause. That may not even get you to look like having progress from the outside. But on the inside, it's everything. It's the moment that you stop outsourcing your value, and it's the moment that you stop treating your pain as this problem that you have to fix. It's the moment that you let yourself be enough before the transformation. This is hard, especially for men, because men in particular are rarely taught how to sit with shame. They're taught to outrun it, to dominate the thing that made them feel small. So when a man gets hurt, maybe he's rejected or abandoned or ghosted, he doesn't just reach for softness. He reaches for power, for proof, for the glow up. Because deep down, he thinks that if he becomes undesirable, or he'll be left again. But what if he could be left and still whole? What if the goal isn't to become so polished that no one leaves you, but to become someone who's anchored and knows that they'll survive even if he's left behind? That's what today's episode is about. It's not the glow up, but the slow rebuild. The one that starts when you admit that you're in pain. The one that deepens when you learn to hold yourself with compassion. And the one that matures when you stop needing to be better and instead to start being honest. That rebuild doesn't happen in 30 days. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't give you a dopamine hit. But it gives you something deeper. It gives you integrity. It gives you that alignment of who you are on the inside with how you move through this world. That's healing. And it's not something that you flaunt. It's something that you live. So let's sit with this question here, shall we? If no one ever saw your healing, would you still pursue it? Would you still do the work if there was no applause or no transformation reel or no moment where the world gasped and said, "Look at you now"? Would you still do it? That's the real test. Because most healing is invisible. No one sees the moment that you choose to break the pattern. No one sees the times that you don't text your ex back. No one sees you sitting on the floor breathing through a trigger moment. No one sees you holding back a reactive comment because you've learned that silence is safer than spite. And yet, those are the moments that build you. Not the visible ones, but the hidden ones. But we're not rewarded for those, are we? Not by society, not by social media, sometimes not even by ourselves. Because we've been conditioned to value the outcome of healing, but not the process. We've been trained to look for the proof that we've moved on, proof that we're better now, proof that we're above the pain. But if your healing needs proof, it's not healing. It's performance. And performances always end at some point. They always collapse under pressure. They always leave you feeling hollow. I mean, what doesn't collapse, right? Integration? That's what healing really is. It's this integratedness. It's not swapping one mask out for another. It's not becoming so together that no one can hurt you, but it's learning to be real, even when it's messy and unresolved or not easy to explain. And that's where things get uncomfortable, because this integration means you're letting go of who you were trying to become in the first place so that you can actually become more of who you really are. Think about that for a second. You've probably spent years trying to become someone, haven't you? Someone who's more desirable, someone who's less reactive perhaps, someone who finally gets picked. But what if you stopped trying to become and instead started trying to return? Return to your softness, return to honesty, return to the part of you that didn't need to be anything but whole. See, that part of you still exists. It's just been buried under years of armor. Armor that said, don't let them see you cry, right? Or always have the upper hand. If they don't want you, make them regret it, right? If you're not healing fast enough, you're falling behind. But you see, healing isn't a race. It's a return. It's a remembering. It's a rebuilding of what was always yours, but never felt safe enough to live out loud. And yes, this work is especially hard for men, I believe, because the culture doesn't offer men models of inner reconstruction, only outer domination. Get stronger, get tougher, get what you want, right? But what about feel more? Grieve honestly. Love again even when you're scared to do so. What about those? See, that's healing. That's courage. And it's the exact opposite of a glow up. Because glow ups are about presentation, whereas healing is about presence. Glow ups are about revenge, whereas healing is more about release. Glow ups are more about being seen, whereas healing is about being known, first by yourself. So let's name the real danger here, shall we? If you heal just enough to stop hurting, but not enough to start feeling, you haven't healed. You've just rearranged your pain. You've put it in a nicer outfit. You've given it a better posture, perhaps. You've convinced others that you're okay. But inside, you're still waiting to be loved back to life. I don't think that's your fault. You were taught that love had to be earned, that worthiness had to be proven, and that healing meant never needing anyone again. But real healing, it doesn't make you independent. It makes you interdependent. It makes you open to connection, not because you're incomplete, but because you're human. It teaches you that strength is not isolation, it's integration. It reminds you that vulnerability is not a weakness. It makes what's love, it makes love feel real. And that none of that fits in this glow up reel. So we return to what actually matters. Let's return to the questions. What parts of me have I abandoned in the name of appearing healed? Or what have I hidden, not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't think it was allowed? Or what kind of healing do I really want? Is it the kind that earns applause or the kind that actually brings me true peace? See, if you don't know the answers to these questions yet, that's okay. Healing, again, isn't about having the answers. It's about staying in the room long enough to hear your real questions. And those questions usually sound like this. They sound like, am I safe to be seen here? Do I have permission to belong? Can I bring the parts of me that I used to hide? If the answer to those is yes, you're not just glowing up, you're actually growing in. And that's where transformation becomes real. Not in the mirror, and not in the gym, not in the Instagram story, but instead in the quiet space between I'm not there yet and I'm still trying. That's healing. That's amazing to see. So let's talk about this illusion of progress. Because a lot of what we're calling healing is actually just avoiding the real work. We call it self-improvement. We call it leveling up. And we say we're healing when really we're just hiding. Hiding in productivity, hiding in the busyness of life, hiding in the results. Because results feel better than reflection. I mean, they're cleaner, they're quantifiable, they get likes. But healing is not quantifiable. You don't compete. You don't post a certificate. You just live it. You feel more, you react less, you forgive slower but deeper. You stay when it's hard, you leave when it's right, you honor yourself, even when no one is clapping. That's where the progress is. But it doesn't look like progress from the outside because it's quiet. It's internal. It's full of moments that you don't really talk about because you're too busy surviving those moments. Like the night that you cried so hard that your chest hurt and no one knew. Or like the day you had the same argument with yourself in your mind for the 100th time, but this time you chose peace. Like the text that you didn't send, like the spiral you caught before it got carried away. See, no one applauds those, but those are your real rebuild sessions. It's not the outfit, not the transformation photo. It's not the look at me now moment. The rebuild is when your nervous system learns to trust again. When you stop flinching at the kindness, when you start instead believing that you're allowed to receive love without having to perform for it. Let's pause here and ask something honest. How much of your healing has been a performance? Not because you're fake, but because you're scared. Scared that if people saw the real or the raw, unfinished you, they'd leave or they'd judge or they'd stop rooting for you. And so you smile and you act strong and you use language like doing the work and moving forward. But inside, you're just tired of pretending that the hardest thing you're carrying isn't sadness. It's the shame that you're not over it yet. And that's the moment where real healing can begin. When you say, I'm still in it and I don't have it all figured out yet, but I'm not glowing up. I'm barely holding it together, but I'm in the game. And someone says, I see you and I'm not going anywhere. That's the medicine. That's the moment that the healing shifts from performance to intimacy. Because here's the secret. Healing is not just an individual journey, it's a relational one. You can't fully heal in isolation. You need safe mirrors. You need soft spaces. You need people who don't require you to be okay in order for you to stay. This is especially important for men because many men were raised to only be useful or impressive, but never held, right? So they don't just crave touch, they crave being tended to. Not fixed, but tended to. And that craving is buried under years of shame. Shame for needing, shame for feeling, shame for wanting connection without knowing how to ask for it. So instead, they perform. They get the job, they get the body, right? They get the life that looks like healing. Whereas inside, they're still lonely. They're still scared. They're still aching to be chosen without needing an audition. And that audition is exhausting because even when they get applause, it doesn't satisfy because it wasn't for them in the first place. It was for the character that they created to survive. And that's why glow-ups aren't enough. Because if your healing makes you more desired but less known, you've just built a bit more of an attractive cage, and that's it. And freedom is not about being admired. It's about being real. So what does the real rebuild look like then? It looks like saying, I'm hurting, but I'm here. I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. I'm messy, but I'm still worthy. It looks like choosing not to punish yourself for being human. It looks like letting your body take its time. It looks like leaving spaces that demand your perfection and entering spaces that actually honor your process. The rebuild is quiet. It's not sexy. It's not viral, but it's true. And you feel it in terms when you least expect it. You feel it when you pause before reacting, when you reach out instead of disappearing, when you speak your truth even when your voice is quivering. You feel it when you stop trying to be enough and just be. That's when you know that you're not glowing. You're growing and it's real. So now what? Now that you've stripped away the image and the performance and the look how far I've come aesthetic, what's left? Well, you're left. You're still healing. You're still human. You're still here. And that is more than enough. Because the truth is, if you're on this journey, you're already brave. Brave enough to question what healing really means. Brave enough to stop chasing applause and to start seeking wholeness. Brave enough to say, I don't want to look healed. I want to be healed. And being healed, it doesn't mean you never hurt. It means that you know how to hold yourself when you do hurt. It means you don't abandon yourself when life gets hard. It means instead that you know how to stay. Stay with your pain, with your truth, and with your heart still open. That's what the glow up culture misses. It thinks that healing is about reinvention, but healing is about return. Returning to your body, returning to your voice, returning to your needs, returning to the part of you that was always whole, even before the world told you otherwise. And yes, that return is hard because it often means you're grieving the version of you that you've built to survive, the one who pretended, the one who achieved, the one who never let cracks show. But that version, strong as they were, was never the end of your story. You're not here to be palatable, and you're not here to be perfect. You're not here to posture, but you're here to be real. And real people cry. Real people break. They doubt. They rebuild. Not in straight lines, not in neat timelines, but in spirals, squigglies. They revisit old wounds with new eyes. They forgive themselves for what they didn't know. And they learn to stay soft, even when it hurts. That is the work. That is the sacred work. And so if you've been trying to glow your way out of grief, if you've been chasing aesthetics instead of integration, if you've been trying to win healing like it's this competition, you can stop now. You're allowed to stop and breathe and feel. You are already enough. Not later, not once you're healed, but like right now. And yes, there may still be things you want to change, patterns that you want to interrupt, wounds that need tending, and boundaries that need enforcing. But you don't have to hate yourself while you're doing it. You don't have to fix yourself so that someone else will finally stay. You don't have to punish your softness or hide your shame. You get to be here as you are, healing in your own time, rebuilding from the inside. And that rebuild, it's not glamorous. It doesn't fit in a 30-day challenge. And it won't go viral, but it will last because it's not built on what others are seeing. It's built on what you know. That you are no longer willing to perform wholeness, and that you are no longer using progress to avoid pain. You're no longer turning healing into another self-worth contest. No, you're simply venturing and returning to that part of you. And in that return, there is rest, there's relief, there's room for everything that you've been carrying. So as I close this episode, let this be a reminder. You are not a project. You're not a transformation that's waiting to be revealed. You're not here to prove anything to anyone, but you're here to reclaim yourself. One breath at a time, one pause before the spiral, one soft truth that says, I'm still in this, and that's enough. See, glow ups, they fade, but the rebuild, like the inner one, that becomes who you are. And who you are is worthy. Not because you healed, but because you let yourself be human all the way through it. You got this.